There's a sadistic killer in my town. A man wakes up next to his wife, like he usually does. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, gently rousing him from his slumber. He turned to his side, taking a moment to appreciate the calmness of the morning and the presence of his wife, who was still peacefully asleep beside him. These were the moments he cherished most, a daily reminder of the simple joys in his life. He rose quietly, careful not to disturb her, and made his way to the kitchen. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee soon filled the air, a scent that always brought a sense of comfort and familiarity. As he prepared their breakfast, he thought about the day ahead. He was a history teacher at the local high school, a job he had grown to love over the years. His students were a lively bunch, always curious and eager to learn, making his days both challenging and rewarding. By the time breakfast was ready, his wife had joined him in the kitchen. They shared a quiet meal together, discussing their plans for the day and enjoying each other's company. These morning routines were their anchor, a comforting ritual that started the day on the right note. As the sun rose higher in the sky, he kissed his wife goodbye and headed to work. The walk to the school was short, and he enjoyed the fresh morning air, greeting neighbors and fellow townspeople along the way. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew each other, and this sense of community was something he valued deeply. The school day unfolded as usual, filled with lectures, discussions, and the occasional burst of laughter from his students. Teaching history allowed him to share his passion for the past, hoping to instill a sense of curiosity and understanding in the young minds he guided. Despite the challenges, he found fulfillment in his work, knowing that he was making a difference. However, that night, the tranquility of their routine was shattered. They had just settled into bed when the piercing screams of the townspeople jolted him awake. His heart pounded in his chest as he sprang up, his wife following suit, both of them filled with a sense of dread. Without a word, they rushed outside, joining the growing crowd gathering under the dim glow of a streetlight. What they saw was beyond comprehension. The lifeless bodies of a family hung grotesquely from the streetlight, a horrifying sight that sent waves of fear and revulsion through the crowd. The man felt his stomach churn as he clutched his wife tightly, trying to shield her from the gruesome scene. "Call the police," he whispered urgently, his voice trembling. She nodded, fumbling for her phone as tears streamed down her face. The police arrived swiftly, their flashing lights illuminating the macabre scene. They cordoned off the area, their faces grim and resolute as they began their investigation. The detective in charge, a stern woman with a determined look in her eyes, took statements from the witnesses, trying to piece together what had happened. The man and his wife could offer little, their minds still reeling from the shock. As the days turned into nights, the killings continued. Each evening brought a new wave of terror, another family found murdered and displayed in the same horrifying manner. The town was gripped by fear, its residents locking the doors and windows as soon as the sun set. The man and his wife clung to each other, their once peaceful existence shattered by the nightly horrors. Rumors spread quickly through the town, each more outlandish than the last. Some whispered of a madman on the loose, others of a vengeful spirit seeking retribution. The man tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for his students, but the fear was palpable in the classroom. Attendance dwindled as parents kept their children at home, hoping to protect them from the unknown threat. One evening, as the man and his wife sat in their living room, a loud knock echoed through their home. They exchanged worried glances before the man cautiously approached the door. He peered through the peephole, relieved to see the detective standing on their porch. "Good evening," she said, her tone brisk. "I'd like to ask you both a few questions." They invited her in, offering her a seat at their kitchen table. The detective wasted no time, diving straight into her inquiries. "Have you noticed anyone suspicious in the neighborhood recently? Anyone out of place or behaving oddly?" The man shook his head. "No, nothing like that. Everyone seems just as scared as we are." The detective nodded thoughtfully. "And have you heard anything unusual at night? Any sounds or disturbances?" "Just the screams," his wife replied, her voice trembling. "It's hard to sleep with all this happening." The detective thanked them for their time and left, leaving the couple to their fears. The man wished he could do more to protect his wife, but he felt powerless against the unseen menace stalking their town. The killings continued, each night bringing a fresh wave of terror. The town's once vibrant streets were now deserted after sunset, the residents too afraid to venture outside. The man's sleep was plagued by nightmares, his mind unable to escape the horrors that had invaded their lives. One night, the screams came again, louder and more desperate than before. The man and his wife rushed outside, joining their neighbors in the grim procession toward the latest crime scene. The bodies of a young couple and their child hung from the streetlight, their lifeless forms casting long shadows in the moonlight. The man felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. How could this be happening? Who could be capable of such monstrous acts? He held his wife close, feeling her shiver in his arms. "We need to stay strong," he whispered. "We'll get through this." Days turned into weeks, and the killings showed no sign of stopping. The detective worked tirelessly, but the killer remained elusive. The town's fear turned to paranoia, neighbors eyeing each other with suspicion. The man did his best to remain composed, but the strain was taking its toll. One evening, he came home to find his wife waiting for him, her eyes red from crying. "What's wrong?" he asked, his heart sinking. She held up a note, her hands shaking. "This was in the mailbox. It's from the killer." The man took the note, his blood running cold as he read the chilling message. "You're next." The man felt a surge of anger and fear. He couldn't let this happen. He had to protect his wife, no matter what. They doubled their efforts to secure their home, installing additional locks and even setting up makeshift alarms. Sleep became a rare luxury as they kept watch through the night, their nerves frayed by the constant tension. Despite their precautions, the man couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He began to notice odd gaps in his memory, moments of time that seemed to vanish without explanation. He dismissed them at first, attributing them to stress and lack of sleep, but the nagging doubt remained. The breaking point came one night when he woke to find his wife's side of the bed empty. Panic gripped him as he frantically searched the house, calling her name. He found her in the living room, staring at the TV in shock. The news was broadcasting live from another crime scene, the bodies of a family hanging from a streetlight. But this time, there was something different. The camera zoomed in on a piece of paper pinned to the bodies. It was another note from the killer, and this one had his name on it. "Next time, it will be your wife." The man's heart pounded in his chest. He had to stop this. He couldn't let the killer take her. Desperation fueled his determination as he began to form a plan. The next few days were a blur of activity. The man took time off work, claiming he needed to protect his wife. He spent his days researching, trying to find any clue that could lead him to the killer. He combed through old news articles, police reports, and even spoke to the detective, offering his assistance in any way he could. But despite his efforts, the killings continued. Each night brought a new horror, another family brutally murdered and displayed for the town to see. The man felt his resolve weakening, the weight of his failure pressing down on him. One evening, as he was poring over his notes, he heard a noise from the kitchen. He walked in to find his wife standing by the sink, her hands covered in blood. His heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" he asked, rushing to her side. She looked at him, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "I don't know. I was making dinner, and then, I don't remember." The man felt a chill run down his spine. This couldn't be happening. He helped her clean up, trying to calm her down, but his mind was racing. What if the killer had somehow gotten into their home? What if they were being watched? He decided they needed to leave. They packed a few essentials and drove to a nearby hotel, hoping to find some measure of safety. But even there, the fear followed them. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every noise a potential danger. The man's sleep was restless, his dreams filled with images of blood and death. He woke in the early hours of the morning, drenched in sweat. His wife was still asleep beside him, her breathing shallow and even. He watched her for a moment, feeling a deep sense of love and protectiveness. But as he looked at her, he felt a nagging doubt creep into his mind. What if she was hiding something? What if she knew more about the killings than she was letting on? He shook his head, trying to dispel the thoughts.